This episode is brought to you by High Point Market. Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life you love. Join us as we explore the keys to living the life you want without compromise. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Design Dash podcast. I am your co-host, Melissa Grove, with my co-host, Laura Umansky. We are fresh off of spring. High Point just got back. So we are just so excited and enthusiastic to still be awake.
And tired. Yes, I was going to say tired. Where are you going with this?
To still be working. No, we are exhausted.
Inspired and tired.
But I mean, it did bring up a really good question. So we're going to talk about our one question for this podcast. And it came up quite a bit when we were at our workshops and talking with a lot of other designers at High Point. How do you know when it's time to hire the right hand person? And what does that person even look like? And I think a lot of these questions came up because I'm Laura's right hand person at the firm. That's how I describe myself when we're at our workshops. I handle everything that's not design. I handle the things that Laura doesn't have to handle, doesn't want to handle,
And I'm not good at doing.
They're the things I like doing. And that really works out for us. And I know that there are a lot of designers who are just like, oof, if I just had that piece, if I just had that person, everything would change for me. So I think I want to ask you first, Laura, how did you know that you needed that person in your business, this role?
Oh, I mean, I knew probably within the first 2 months of opening the business. And I knew I needed someone. I didn't know what that person did. I didn't know who they were, and I certainly couldn't afford it. So just being a new business owner. I think I really didn't know what that could look like until years later when I read the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And, or actually, I'm lying. I read Rocket Fuel first.
Okay.
So Rocket Fuel, same author, talks about the two roles that you need to scale a firm. You need the visionary, which is typically the firm owner. You need the visionary and you need the integrator, those two roles. And the integrator is your operations person. That's your chief operating officer. They're going to take action on those visionary ideas. They're going to also talk you off a ledge when you have a crazy idea that you should not be implementing right now. So that person is your right hand. So once I read that book, the book Rocket Fuel, I was like, oh, okay, that's what I need. So that was probably, I don't know, 12 years in,
Okay.
10 years in, into the firm. We've had the firm 20 years. So probably about halfway to where we are today is when I realized, wow, this really is, I cannot do everything.
Yeah.
I can't. And
And
I was really piecemealing it.
did you have an idea of what this person should handle, like the kinds of tasks?
Yes, I did. I mean, because like I said, I was piecemealing it. So I knew accounting was one thing, marketing was another thing. Really anything to do with financials, human resources and hiring, like all of those things that don't fall under business development and creative services for me. That's what I needed.
Right.
Because those are the things where I feel really good about what I do. Like I'm good at biz dev, I'm really good at like strategic planning, and I'm good at creative.
Yeah.
I'm not good at HR. So it's just those things like you may love HR. So that may fall under, as a business owner, under your wheelhouse. But yeah, thank God you do. Because I
Yeah.
don't.
I don't know any of the designers that I've ever met in our community or at High Point who say, I'm not very good at design. I need somebody else to do that. It's and it's
We've been in a different industry.
I hope that's what you are really good at. But then they'll say that, but I am handling my invoicing. Or they'll say, I do kind of like my social media. I just never get to it. And then
Right.
those things compound, and then they just get somewhat paralyzed by all of the things that they have to do or feel like they have to do, and then they don't do any of it.
Totally. And I think also what helped is we do a workshop called Find Your Best Focus. And so that exercise I started doing around the same time, I think, as we started talking about you becoming our COO. And I was like, and this Find Your Best Focus exercise really does put a spotlight on what you're good at and what you should be doing in your business.
Yes.
And it shines a light on the stuff that you're bad at and you should fire yourself from. So, yeah, I think that was really illuminating. I'm using a lot of lighting
It was very eye
terms here.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, so you started working with us. You were hired as director of digital marketing,
that's right. Because that
and then
was
I
my background, that was what I
yeah,
knew, I'd been in marketing my whole career.
and it took me 2 years to talk you into being COO.
'Cause I didn't wanna do it, and I think that the reason
And that
why
is short story. That story's done. She didn't want
the
to.
reason why is because I didn't think I could, because the way that we were getting to be structured was using that EOS structure where you were the visionary, you're handling all of the big creative and handling the design team, and the integrator, this role that wouldn't necessarily fit me, I thought at the time, but was what our business needed, was somebody who was also in charge of finances, and
Right.
I'd gotten a D minus in my freshman accounting class in college. Like, it was something I was like, "I don't think I'm right for this." But then when I took a look at the actual tasks that we were handling, which were very project management oriented, and when all of the marketing tasks that I'd done in the past was me managing projects. Yes, these were
Right.
financial projects and us like moving accounting systems, but you kind of tossed me in there, and I was like, well, damn it, I do actually kind of like this work.
Yeah.
I
And
do
you're
like
like, "I can actually do
I
this."
can, and I think one of the things that I always tell people who ask me, like, "Oh, how do I find somebody like you, or how do I find, a COO?" I say, "You have to find somebody who wants to solve problems, and those problems aren't always, one size fits all. The problems for this other person's business is going to be different than this other designer's, but you will have problems, and I think that you need somebody who doesn't wanna shy away from those and is actually eager to figure out what those problems are to fix them."
For sure. I mean, and you weren't in the interior design industry. I think that's also a blocker
Mhm.
for a lot of business owners in this industry is how are you gonna find that unicorn that wants to be a COO and knows the interior design industry?
Yeah, and
It's
I
almost impossible. So
I
do you feel like
did.
you don't have to know this industry to be a successful COO?
I don't think so. I mean, I actually really appreciated my background in marketing and in corporate environments because most interior design businesses are going to be small businesses. And so I was able to bring in this kind of knowledge of communication and internal structure that doesn't come naturally to a small bit, like, it just can't, because you have to run so lean for so many years. You don't have the time to put all of that process together, and so I came and I don't know many other interior designers, especially at the managerial level or at the leadership level, who also know that if they've only worked in small interior design business
Right.
their entire career. So I think that that actually helped me, and some of the very few design firms that I know that do have this right-hand person, whether they're a COO or a CFO, that person does not have an interior design background, and it actually works to
Yes.
their benefit.
And so you just said something interesting. So the COO, CFO, so chief operating officer, chief financial officer. They're very different things, but it sounds like at least the kind of mid-sized firm owners that we talk to, many of them go to a CFO first.
Yeah, they do, and I think that that works look, we've had a COO or a CFO in the past, and he was actually a great mentor to me when I
Totally.
was,
Yeah.
becoming our COO, but it got to a point where we didn't necessarily need that exclusive role any longer. We have
Mhm.
a really strong accountant, and I've gotten really good with our number not to toot my own horn, it's really all because of our CFO. I've gotten really good with our numbers that we didn't need that role anymore, but I do think that at some point in time, especially once you get to a certain level, and maybe you can
Mhm.
answer that question. Once you get to a certain level or a certain revenue or a certain complexity, I think you do need somebody with really good financial oversight. But I worked with him so closely, it just got to a point now where I'm just like, I know exactly what we need, and I'm able to do that within my role as COO.
That's a good question though. Is it a monetary is it a revenue number? Like when
Yeah.
do you know you're ready for that right-hand person? God, that's such a loaded question because, like, what does that right-hand person do? Because it could be someone that's just like an administrative manager, an
Yes.
office manager, like for a time being. It could be that, supplemented with a bookkeeper, and you're still acting as that, the hub, and you have all these spokes, and they're circling around you. But when do you know you need a COO? What is that? Is there a number? Is there a number of employees? I don't know. I think it's different for everyone. For me, it was probably 10 employees that I needed somebody really dedicated to, admin,
Yeah.
But then, like, to have a true COO, I don't know how many employees we had when you came on, 15, 20
15, and then we ballooned to, like,
to
22
25.
because
Yeah,
we were just so, so busy,
and
and
that's when we brought on a CFO too, is when we grew in revenue and in people.
yes, and you know
Right.
what? It was at that pivotal moment where we started making all of our process documentation. Like, we had
Yeah.
processes, but we were just like, "Wow, there's too many people here now, like, I we can't manage them all. We have to have them reference something while I'm not
Yeah.
in front of them,"
It's
and
all in my head.
I think those those years were just so hard. We were we were just
'Cause we
so
were we were, like, building the plane as we were flying it. Yes.
we were, and I don't know, like, if I were a business owner and I didn't have a right-hand person, I don't think we would have done that. Like, I don't think we would have
No,
done that if we didn't have, like me, somebody in charge of
we
process.
couldn't have.
We were still making sure we had a design firm that was
Right. No, we couldn't have. So at that point, we were, yeah, that was in the middle of COVID and we had, I think, 22 to 25 people at any given time. Since then, we did get all of our processes on paper. We
yeah,
do have a COO. We did work with a CFO who then, like you said, phased out. Now we're to 15 people. We're very stable,
manageable.
15, knock on wood. We have our processes documented. Of course, that never ends. It's a never ending job. And we have a really good operating cadence, but that took a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would think if you know you want to scale and you're getting into the multi-million range for your firm, maybe you're at 2 million, maybe you have 10, 12 people, it's time to very much start thinking about what's that next step. What's your next phase look like?
Yeah, and I think that, maybe this isn't, like, an actual quantitative goal, but I think at the time that I became COO, we were just winning work
Yeah.
faster than we could operationally handle it,
Mhm.
and I think that was our trigger, was like, "Okay, like, we have a ton of work." You couldn't necessarily get involved in the weeds like you were before. You know, you were
No.
doing business development, you were handling clients, we were dealing with COVID, and so everything was just rapidly changing, like, there just wasn't enough time for you to get stuck in operations stuff.
Right. Well, and I hated it too, so I didn't wanna
Right.
do it in the first place. So I think COVID probably pushed me over that precipice. Like, I didn't really have a choice. And thankfully, you had already been there, like, you had institutional knowledge of the firm. You knew
Mhm.
how we operated, you'd been there a couple of years, and I'd been talking or, like, goading you into moving into COO, which took some time, but you don't have to hire someone internally. You can go outside of your firm to find someone. I just found that, like, I knew that your background, like, where you would come from and the way you work was exactly what we needed.
Yes, and
Um,
I think too, I tell people, I tell this a lot to people, you and I come from different backgrounds. A lot of times we're eerily on the same page. Like, we actually had a moment
Mhm,
like that earlier today where we'd never talked about
mhm.
the situation and came to the exact same conclusion. But I also think that we have very complementary skill sets. I could never do what you do. And I'm really thankful that you don't like the things that I like to do because then I
Yeah,
wouldn't have a job. But I think that that fits really, really well, but that can also lead to disagreements because I might wanna do something in a different way than you do, and I think
yep,
that for other, in interior design owners, I see a lot of them, they end up choosing to work with their spouse or their partner because and
right.
then they get used to those disagreements. They're like, "Okay, well, we'll
A
get
little
over."
safer to fight with your spouse.
Right. Um, but I think that that's necessary as well. I think that we've had a lot of fruitful discussions because of that, but I know that for some people, it's like, "Well, I don't even want to touch this now." Like, I don't wanna handle, like, I just want this to be easy, and and for the
Yeah,
most part, I think that what we do is pretty effortless, but I think you have to find a good complementary personality, or, like, maybe somebody who can pick up the things that you don't wanna do, and then I need you to push me harder because my first inclination is to say no. Because they're
that's
like,
okay. I
"You
need
can't do
that.
that."
I'm like, "But here's why," and I'm pretty good at justifying anything, so if you're still saying no, then it's probably wrong.
Right.
Um, so I'm good with that. I think I just don't like, when I imagined this role early on, like, honestly, this is so much better, this than, like, the way that we work together than I thought I would be able to have as a small business owner. So, like, the way that we work together is awesome. And do we always agree? Totally not.
Mhm.
Absolutely no. But I think that is why it works. But
Yeah.
if you're looking for a right hand person, where do we even start? Like, where would someone start at this point?
I
Just
think that
all
yeah,
on paper,
well, I mean, what's interesting is, like, you hired me for marketing, and then I ended up
right?
taking on the COO role. So I think that what well, and I mean, you can tell me if this is actually the case, but I think that as a business owner, it's really finding somebody who can take away these things off of your plate that are just really dragging you down. And that could be marketing, it could be your accounting, it could be, I think that you were talking about this earlier, somebody who just manages your office, but I think that it needs to be somebody who can handle enough in order to make it work because I'm not billable. And I know that some people do bill their COOs because they actually handle procurement or, they
Right.
handle something related to the design. And I don't. But I handle HR, admin, marketing. I manage our procurement team. So you don't have to. So I think you have to kind of figure out, okay, who do I want to bring on that's like worth it?
Yeah.
Who's doing enough? Because I think especially in a small firm, they a CEO needs to be handling as much as you handle, just not the same tasks. If that
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think it may sound scary to some business owners to hear, like, well, you don't have to do that anymore because you're like, wait, what? I just hand over my finances to someone and I never see it again. Like, what happens? That is not how you run it. You don't have to do it that way. You can, like Melissa and I have a leadership meeting with our 2 design directors every single Monday. And then we have our visionary integrator meeting. Again, from that book, Rocket Fuel. We
Mhm.
have our VI meeting every other Monday where we sit down for an hour and a half. And so we know what's going on across the entire firm.
Yeah.
If there are big decisions, you're making them together.
Mhm.
So it's not like you just get siloed. Like the goal is not to pull yourself away from the firm and you never look at that again. Like you don't ever look at your bank account. Like, that's
Right.
not the
We have a
case.
financial meeting right after this. Let's
Right.
talk
And
about
so oh gosh, do we? Okay, great. My favorite. So I think that there's a lot that goes into it, and here's gonna be my pitch. So we are opening our growth studio, our Design Dash Growth Studio. Open enrollment is coming up, so please check it out because we walk through 5 pillars of running a successful design business. And this is part of it. So find your best focus. I mentioned that exercise earlier. That's one of the first things you do is figure out as a business owner, where should you be focused? Where's your time spent? Where should you not be spending your time? And then who should do it? So we talk a lot about team like building your team. What does your
Mhm.
organizational chart look like? And then how do you find your right hand person? So that's a big part of what we do in Growth Studio.
Yep.
Yep.
It's
So
really
check it out.
forward thinking, and I think that's the thing about getting a right-hand man is that you're not or woman, you're not thinking about
Right.
today's problems, you're thinking about your needs for tomorrow, so and I think that that's why, just to plug it again, is the the whole growth studio thing, like, if you wanna stay where you are and you're okay with that, you might not need a right-hand person. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think, but if you want to grow, you want to have a team, like ours, it's 15 people. I think you get to a point where you absolutely need that person. But if you are kind of before you need that, Grow Studio is a really great substitute for that. We talk through all of these things as if we were, like a fractional COO sometimes for our
Yeah.
community members.
Yep. So it's great support. But I don't know. I can't imagine still running all of the financials and the HR and the marketing and all of those things that I did when I was on my own like that. But my goal from day one, I was very strategic about it that I wanted to have a larger scale firm. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Like if you want to grow your firm, awesome. Grow Studio is for you. If you don't want to get bigger, Grow Studio can still be for you because we give you a lot of those processes and can act as that sounding board. So
Yes,
yeah.
and well, the processes is really important too because we talk to so many interior designers that are just kind of emerging, and they're just like, "Oh, well, I've been in business for 2 to 3 years. I'm ready to start really hiring and growing, but I can't because I don't have all my processes in place." And I wanna say, "Well, that's
Oh,
what somebody like me is for." Like, I wouldn't
yeah.
expect Laura to write all that down, like, that's not who has ti you don't have time for that.
No, it was in my head forever. We're still pulling processes out of my head as of today.
We are, but that's what your right-hand person is there for, to
Yeah.
kinda institutionalize your firm and create these kinds of standards. So don't feel bad if you're not doing that. I don't think you should be.
No, that comes later. You're good. Don't worry. Okay, so I hope I have convinced you that we have convinced you that a right hand person would be really beneficial and that it's possible for you because you can find somebody. I promise you.
And that's a good note. Everybody asks, "Well, where did you find each other?" And I just say,
Oh,
"LinkedIn."
LinkedIn. Is
That's
that
where
right?
yes.
Yes.
You reached out to me, and I was in a extremely toxic work environment at the time, so I was like, "Please get me out of here." I felt so lucky that you'd reached out to me. So I think that,
It
like,
was a cold outreach?
it was a cold outreach, and so
My God, I'm the best.
and now, 8 years later, but I think a lot of people are just like, "Well, I need to find something special, like, is there a special job board?" It's like, "No, it was just
I am
right place,
so
right."
presumptuous and aggressive. It's insane. Like, I don't even remember that. Like, cold outreach on LinkedIn. Who the hell do I think I am?
It worked out. I was
Okay.
you have no idea how excited I was to see that message after working where I was working.
Hi, I'm some random person. You want to come over here now? Thanks.
I was like, where can I sign?" And but, obviously it really worked out. So don't feel
Well, you
like
played it very cool because I was like, we got to get her.
I know,
Like,
and then
I
I told you later. I was like, well, let me tell you about this lady. But if you're out there, and you're thinking, I'll never find this person. I think that you just have to be open to finding this person anywhere. I imagine you could find somebody at High Point Market. Honestly,
yeah,
there were a lot of people that
network.
we met in our workshops. Who were just like, oh yeah, I'm not a designer. I have this other background, but pluck that person right out of their seat. That's a work.
Perfect. You're with me now. All right. Well, I think God, I forget about these like origin stories. That's amazing. I
I
love
know,
that. I
well,
can't
because
believe I did cold
it was
outreach.
almost a decade ago. Can you
What
imagine
was I
that?
doing? Oh, I can't remember 10 days ago, much less 10 years. So that's impressive. Um, yeah, check out Grow Studio. Where do they find where should someone go to find out more?
Yeah, just go to design-com. Actually, right now, we even have like a little teaser workshop that gives you an idea of the kinds of things that you'll learn in Growth Studio. It's really robust. I mean, there is a new lesson every week for the course of 6 months, and you will learn how to build this plan toward a seven-figure business. I think any interior designer, just the way that interior design businesses are structured, can be a seven-figure business if you want it to be.
100% great. Well, I can't wait to see you in our community in the Growth
Yes,
Studio
yes, please
and
do
reach out with your big wins and your stories. We want to hear from you.
it. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out our next podcast coming live next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, you can find us and more wonderful stories like these on design-com. And make sure to follow us at Design Dasher on Instagram and TikTok. Till next time.